Did Travis Hunter end up with the perfect team that will let him be himself? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borbin. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Joining me today is someone who now has Travis Hunter in his life, Tony Wiggins from Locked On Jaguars. Tony, let's just jump right to it. The Jaguars made a huge move to get Travis, and my biggest question and doubt throughout the entire process was, whatever team that drafts Travis Hunter, are they going to let him be Travis, which means play receiver, play corner, and do it both full time? And let's talk about what they said about it.
All right, Kevin. Thanks, KB, for having me. Also, I appreciate it and the job you do with Locked On Bucks. Yeah, they've been saying this thing all off season, right? And they talk about adding players to their ecosystem, right? And so I'm going to actually maybe even sound a little bit like James Gladstone, because you almost got to sound like him to make sure you get the point across. The point is, he says, we want guys that are intangibly rich. He leaves you to the imagination to figure out what that is. But intangibly rich, from based on the definitions that I was able to get, are guys that do things that you can't really explain. Guys that do things that you can't see, right? Guys that have more than height, speed, and all of that, and that's important. There's just something else about them that is lined up and is jived up with the way that Liam Cohen and the way that James Gladstone think, right? And they learned a lot of that stuff from the Rams and Les Snead and Sean McVay. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is, he says, we want guys that all they have to do is come here and be nothing more than themselves. And by being themselves, it makes everything rise, right? Well, when you think about those two things, what player, not only in this draft, but what player in recent memory fits those descriptions more than Travis? None. And I think that's why they went out and did it.
Yeah, I think, and it was interesting because I'm very pessimistic sometimes. It's just in our nature as humans to be like, okay, this is going to happen, but in reality. And so my pessimistic take on Travis Hunter was, whatever team drafts him, they're going to go, okay, yeah, Travis, we'll let you play both ways. And then when he shows up, they're like, okay, hop on over to offense and you'll probably never play defense again, or vice versa. No, they laid out a plan. So let's talk about that plan, because the way they explained it is they're going to push him, or they're going to put him on offense at first, I think, because the offense is a little bit more complex than the defense. And then he's going to work his way into defense and be ready to play by the beginning of the season. What did you make of that, right? Do you think that was them sort of assuring him or assuring the world that he's going to play both ways?
No, I don't think they have to do assurances, because I believe, and I appreciate the question, because you're right, that does happen a lot of times in the pros. Teams tell you this and tell you that. They don't really have to lie to you, because in the pros they draft you. But in free agency, they might lie to you a little bit. Once you're in, they tell you to do what they want you to do, like playing inside or outside if you're a defensive lineman. In college, you see it all the time. Yeah, we're recruiting you as a tackle, and they put you at center. You know what I'm saying? Because you're on scholarship. They can't do it too much no more because of the transfer portal, but you know how it goes. But with Travis, this was just all honesty. And I think the worst mistake you can make with a kid like that, and y'all have experience with him, because for a superstar, he's not diva at all. And the thing about him is, you cannot lie to a person like that. You cannot just voluntarily put yourself in a situation where you lose his trust. I think his happy space and his superpower, other than his great ability, is how much he loves the game and how much he puts into it and how much he trusts it and how much he cares about his teammates. The first way to get him to stop really believing in that, because now it's a business, is to mislead him and lie to him. And I don't think that that's what the Jaguars are. First-time GM, James Gladstone, first-time head coach, Liam Cohen, first-time executive vice president, or Tony Baselli, Hall of Famer Tony Baselli. I think they want to get off to a good start here in the organization with what they want the culture to be. I believe the order that they talked about, and it was explained when they said that he'd start on offense, there were a lot of people that went, I told you he's a better receiver than a corner. That is not what they were saying. What they're saying is this, and these are my words and my way of explaining it. If they had to start the season tomorrow, Travis Hunter could line up at corner and they could play. because you're either going to play man off, you're going to play press man, whatever, you're going to stop the dude in front of you, right? And technique wise, it might be a little bit, getting your footwork and recognizing the NFL stuff. But other than that, he could line up and play. You can't do it at receiver, man. Not because he's not a good receiver, because he doesn't know the offense. In fact, nobody on the team knows the offense. So him starting out heavier with wide receiver in terms of the playbook, it's probably this big. Him starting out in terms of wide receiver and the playbook that he has on defense that applies to him is probably this big, because he lines up outside at corner. So which one will get you to the point where the Jaguars talked about what they want? They want on opening day for you to be even keeled on both sides. So what does that tell you? They believe you already have an advantage at corner. They need to get you snuffed up to wide receiver. And that's just not about Travis Hunter. That's about onboarding a wide receiver versus onboarding a cornerback, and trying to do it when the person that you're onboarding is the same guy at two different positions.
Right. And I think that's a fantastic point, because defensively, maybe there's a different shell that they like to use pre-snap. But offensively, there's a reason that Liam Cohen is viewed as one of the masterminds of the league. It's because his offense is so unique. So you don't just roll up and be like, okay, send me the playbook and I'll have it by tomorrow. That's not how it works, right? He's revived careers, and he's done it by having a unique offense. And so I think that my last point on this Travis Hunter situation is, and I don't really know like how the proper way to go about it was, but I feel like the Jags absolutely nailed it, right? Even the NFL too. They announced him at both positions. When the Jags drafted him, they let him talk to both the offense coordinator, head coach, and then the defense coordinator. And then they make their plan clear, and they just keep like throwing it out there in the public, like, yes, we will let you play both ways. Because I think there was a part of Travis that maybe was getting, and this could be me interpreting things, but at the combine, it seemed very much like teams were interviewing him at X position or X position, not both, or at least not at once. And so I think Travis felt like the need to sort of send out the message like, hey, I want to play both ways. And he sort of threw out the threat of like, I will stop playing football if you don't let me play both ways. Now, would he actually do it? I don't know. But the Jags obviously didn't want to find out, right? And I wouldn't want to find out either. And so let's talk about how the Jags have handled the pomp and circumstance throughout of just like the situation. Because would you say they nailed it?
I would say they absolutely nailed it. And for any team or anyone thinking that him wanting to play both ways is a detriment to some teams, let me explain something the Jaguars did. They traded next year's first round pick in a draft that's supposed to be better than this first round for Travis Hunter. I almost think they traded next year's pick. They traded next year. That's, if you look at them and ask them what was the biggest pick they traded, it's probably the one in 2026. And then the one this year was right behind it, even though they probably won't be picking top 5. But the thing is they knew that was going to be the bait or the thing that was going to make people snap. Anytime you say next year's first rounder combined with the top 5 pick this year and then extra change, like a second rounder this year, man, that deal, when somebody mentioned it earlier, like Daniel Jeremiah, somebody asked him, what would it take? I said, I ain't doing that, because that's even my old school thinking. So for a team that did that and went against the grain to go and get him, they did not go and get him just because he's a corner. They didn't go get him just because he's a wide receiver. They went and got him because he's both. They went and got him because he's the best at both. They went and got him because I feel that, I might date myself here, body type, he reminds me of Albert Lewis. Look up Albert Lewis. He's one of the 10 best cover corners to ever play this game. Body type wise, I feel he reminds me of Ocho Cinco, right?
Yeah.
If he's anywhere near both of those guys at the same time, he's going to be unbelievable, man. So yeah, I like the move for Travis Hunter. I like the fact that they're going to be, they're deadly honest. Like they said, we want you to be yourself. They're not going to trade all that capital and then come up and try to turn you into something that you're not and try to mislead people. No, this is bold. They're bold. They're young. This is new. He's bold. He's young. He's new. And I think it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think they made the right aggressive move. And we're going to talk more about the move, but first, a quick break. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. The the perfect thing is the surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. You get a little lazy and you don't want to cook. Now I could budget smarter and save more. I got a wedding coming up, so Monarch Money is helping me take control of my finances. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. It's Locked On Buffs. It's Kevin Borba. It's Tony Wiggins. Tony, let's talk about the move itself. I'll give everyone an insight just in case they happened to miss it in the opening part of the draft. But the Browns traded back. They moved back 3 spots, and they got the number 5 pick from the Jags, a second-round pick, which ended up being the 36th pick, a fourth-round pick, which was number 126, and then, like you mentioned earlier, the 2026 first-round pick from the Jaguars, who got pick number 2, a fourth-round pick in this year's draft, and a sixth-round pick in this year's draft. So, obviously, the Jags were willing to sort of move in all the chips for Travis Hunter, and you sort of talked about the aggressiveness. Let's talk about the buy-in from the new front office, the new head coach. What does this buy-in say to you about maybe Travis Hunter and maybe about your guys' team this year?
It's all gas and no brakes. It's like you've seen it in the past when teams say they're going to add speed. They'll just add one fast guy and say, hey, there he is. There's Mr. Speed. There's our fast dude right there. And it doesn't make them fast all the way across the board, right? Look, I cover college football in the South, SEC, Florida State, Clemson, and the ACC. We know a little bit about speed, right? And I know Texas and Southern Cal and some other teams have this speed, but it's something that having true speed on a team is not like when you leave your house, you say, well, I forgot my keys. Let me go get your keys. No, it's like having true speed is like having integrity. You can't forget it and leave it and realize, oh, let me go back. I forgot my integrity at home. You either fast or you're not, right? Across the board. And with Travis, they got faster. And what made this so enticing is I saw something this morning on social media where somebody said that maybe they'll lose the draft value board. Like nobody, they win the Super Bowl, ain't nobody gonna care about that if he's good as everybody thinks he is. But the other part of it is this. Someone said that, yeah, but if he's Justin Jefferson, doesn't that mean that trading up twice, trading 2 first rounders was worth it? Here's the thing. They're already comparing Brian Thomas Jr. to Justin Jefferson. The dude's a 1-year player, and he's already a top 7, top 8 wide receiver in the league, and it's probably going to go up as this team improves around him and the scheme improves. My only question about all of this is if Brian Thomas Jr. is your Jamar Chase or your Justin Jefferson, how much room does that leave for Travis Hunter to be that and to be considered that guy? Or if Travis Hunter is that guy, then what does that do with the projection of Brian Thomas Jr.? So it's going to be fun to see. Like Cincinnati, T. Higgins is the clear number 2 receiver. He's rich, but he's the clear number 2. Jordan Addison is a clear number 2. Devontae Smith, clear number 2. And it's interesting that I mentioned him because I'll tell you why. They don't expect Travis. If Travis Hunter is Jordan Addison at this point, they're going to be disappointed. Not them, but the fans. If Travis Hunter at this point turns out to be T. Higgins, they're going to be disappointed, right? If Travis Hunter turns out to be Devontae Smith, they won't be disappointed if the Jaguars win. And Brian Thomas Jr. is A.J. Brown. So what they do with the rest of the team really, really matters and how they fit them in. And then Travis doesn't have to stand alone on the wide receiver stuff by itself. He can return punts. He can go over and play corner and be a top 10 corner in the league. I think he can be the best corner in the league if he played it solely all the time, but that's not what they're going to do. So maybe he's never the best wide receiver. Maybe he's never the best corner. And the only reason is because I think to be the absolute best at those things, you have to be myopically focused on being the best at those things. But he can still be dynamic in the point where he is very, very good at one thing, very, very good at the other. And if the team wins, wins, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think if you're telling me that Travis Hunter is going to be, say, top 7 at both positions, and you guys are in the playoffs making a little run here and there, I don't think anyone's mad at that. And I also think, and feel free to jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Travis Hunter gives you an answer on Trevor Lawrence, right? Because Trevor Lawrence was once viewed as the prodigal son. He was the next Andrew Luck, the next John Elway. And we're getting to this point now where people are like, is Trevor Lawrence what we thought he was? And kind of everyone's been able to point at, well, the weapons haven't been there. Now he has two of arguably the top young receivers in the league. So do you think this is a Trevor Lawrence prove it year or prove it move as well?
I think what it is for them is let's do things that show people how we feel about Trevor Lawrence. I think they already feel the way that the public felt about Trevor when he got drafted. I don't think their opinion, because they're in the business of evaluating coaches, they know how they felt about Trevor. Liam Cohen was bouncing around the SEC and coaching up Will Levis to look like a draft pick. He knew who Trevor Lawrence was when he was coaching in college. This is what they do for a living. James Gladstone's been a part of the Rams organization. He knew what his evaluation of Trevor Lawrence was. The thing is, more bad organizations have ruined good players than vice versa, than bad players ruining good organizations. So when I look at it, you talk about all those generational guys. You talk about Drew Brees, Sean Payton. You talk about Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, talk about Tom Brady, the GOAT, and then you talk about all these other quarterbacks. And as soon as you mention the quarterback, I turn to look at the coach and I look at the organizational structure, and then I turn back and look at the one that I cover in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence has not had what those people have had. Trevor Lawrence has not had stability in the front office. Trevor Lawrence has not had great talent evaluators. Trevor Lawrence has not had alignment from the coach all the way to the person in charge of football operations. He hasn't had any of that stuff. The Jaguars signed 4 offensive linemen and drafted another one on day 2. That's 5 linemen in 1 year. And then they got Travis Hunter, went and signed Diami Brown while they already have Brian Thomas Jr. And then they drafted 2 running backs with the fact that they have Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. What does that tell you? That means that they were bad offensively. And when they evaluated this team, they probably said about them what Nick Saban said when he took over Alabama. What the hell were they doing here? What were they doing here?
Tony, don't tell me you weren't a fan of Urban Meyer. I think he tripped into the kicker. I think it was a misunderstanding.
I was actually, to be honest, to be totally transparent, the Jaguars had lacked winning atmosphere for so long. I was a fan of the move. I did not know that. I thought we were getting a very organized coach, and it turns out we got a grown version of King Joffrey. So turns out it was a good thing that he didn't stay.
Yeah, I think just the overall Urban Meyer experience was an underwhelming one at the NFL level, to say the least. But to go back to Travis Hunter, overall, just to summarize, great move, shows the aggressiveness, and I think puts your franchise in a prime position to succeed. You sort of hinted at Travis Hunter being the next Devontae Smith. I have a couple comparisons I want to give you, but first we're going to take a quick break. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Okay, Tony, I have a couple comparisons that I saw about Travis Hunter that were pretty fun. You mentioned one, Devontae Smith. That was viewed as his floor, and I feel like that's a pretty great floor. And then his floor as a corner was Darius Slay. So if you're telling me that Travis Hunter could be a wide receiver and a corner that could contribute to winning a Super Bowl, how much of a genius does Gladstone look like in, say, 10 years?
Looks like an incredible genius for doing that. Not to mention, he's a good kid, and he's fun. Kids love him, but he's not a gangster. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know how hard that is in this day of social media. Like, he's likable, lovable, relatable to a whole bunch of people, whether it's your great grandmother or my grandson. And you know what? It's really naturally who he is, and that's why I think that this could be so big. It's all going to be about on the field stuff, but it's also about the fact that he's the type of player that they're going to have to send him home. You got to get out of here, man. You got to go rest. You got to go fishing or something. Get out of here. Don't stay here and keep working. Stop watching all that film. They ain't gonna say that. Nobody ever says that, but you know what I mean. The thing is he's a very, very talented dude who happens to be humble, who happens to also be one of the hardest workers anybody has ever seen. And people the Jaguars specifically, when they say be nothing more than yourself, you know what they believe? They don't believe that him wanting to play on both sides of the ball is him being cocky and selfish. They believe him wanting to play on both sides of the ball, it means he's Batman in football uniform. It means he loves the game. It means he wants to be accountable for the outcome. And you guys covered him in Colorado. Tell me where I just lied. Tell me where I just lied. I didn't.
Yeah, I would just have to stay silent, honestly, because Travis Hunter was unequivocally himself, and he was unequivocally a great player. And you mentioned his relatability, right? And I think the moment I realized Travis was truly like a different person in the sense of like he doesn't care about being famous was he does these Twitch streams or I don't know which one it is. He streams and he's wearing like a Lilo and Stitch like onesie, or he's wearing like a Mike Wazowski onesie, and then he goes out and torches some of the best corners in college football, and then shuts down some of the best receivers. And it's like, okay, this guy has found himself as a person, and he's okay with that, and everyone should be or should strive to do that. And then he also knows who he is as a football player. And I think it's very rare that you find someone who can sort of accept their own skin in the sense of like, I'm confident and comfortable with who I am, and I could still go out and do this. And so I think he's a prime example of just staying true to yourself. I wanted to get your opinion on this. What does Travis Hunter's ceiling look like, right? It could be on offense, defense, or as the overall. What do you think his ceiling is in the NFL?
This is going to sound cliche, but it isn't. It's honest and genuine. And I gave those player comps. And the reason why I mentioned Devontae Smith is not necessarily comping him in terms of body style or how good he is. I think he's way more talented than that. I'm talking about a role on a winning team where you have a number one receiver on the other side. You got a great running back. Everybody needs the ball. It's almost like Trayvon Walker, his rookie year. Nobody complained about him being the number one pick because the Jaguars went to the playoffs and were within one score of the divisional of Kansas City in the second round. He had 4.5 sacks. The last 2 years, he has 21 sacks. And people are calling him a bust because the Jags are losing. And that's the difference. The thing is people pay attention to stats when you're not winning, right? When you're winning, nobody cares about your numbers. It's that rising tide thing, right? So that's why I compared him to him. But in terms of who he is and what he can be, I have no clue. I really, really do think this thing is the ceiling to this is something that I can't explain or understand. And I think we're all witnessing something that we need to pay attention to, because barring injury, and I hate mentioning that word, barring injury, I don't think we've seen anything like what his top could be like. I don't. And that's why I'm so excited. And it's not just me being somebody who covers this team and a Jacksonville native and somebody who wants best for this city. What it is me not just wanting to get in the way expectation-wise of something that I believe is supernatural. And he's done some supernatural things up to this point, or at the very least, think it's obviously natural that he did it and he's a human being. But we haven't seen people. Everybody keeps saying Devin Hester, Deion Sanders, Champ Bailey. Joe Barry said it perfectly. Charles Woodson. Them dudes can't do what he did. Not in college. This dude literally was the best player at two positions.
Yeah, he played, I think it was, what was the number off the top of my head? It was over 1,500 snaps, right? Like, that's just unheard of.
Unreal.
That's just unheard of. And yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly, because it's like, it's hard to forecast something we've never seen. Like, we've seen Deion moonlight as a receiver, but then again, it was like, okay, back to corner after a while. Patrick Peterson, there was a point where he was going to do it, didn't end up doing it. And then, like, if you Google, and this is one of my favorite exercises about Travis Hunter, if you Google the top two-way players in the NFL history, Mike Vrabel is on the list. JJ Watt's on the list. They got like 3 touchdown catches as tight ends one time, and now they're like some of the best two-way players we've seen at the NFL level.
He's going to shatter all of that stuff in 1 year. Probably half the season. Half a season, he'll have 4 picks and 5 touchdowns in half a season. Okay,
that leads me to my next and final question for you, Tony. I want you to predict the future here. What's more likely? Travis Hunter has 7+ interceptions or 1,200+ receiving yards?
1,200+ receiving yards. And I know it's not the home run I made it sound like by answering that fast, okay? Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say that is because I do believe that this is going to be a complete effort across the board. You know, if Travis had gone to like I was going to say a bad team in the Jaguars, so I can't say that.
Organization.
Had he gone to an organization where you did not have Brian Thomas Jr., right? I would say he'd get 1,500-1,600 yards, right? Because you can catch him deep. You can just throw it out to him. He's a ball in the hand run guy also. Mm-hmm. So this may be a little bit like Reggie Bush, where the impact is bigger than the numbers, right? Like they move him around and do all of these things. It may be like that, but I think it'll be a lot better. 7 picks is hard, man, because they got to be willing to throw your way. And a lot of times teams just stay away from dudes like that. So it's close, but I'll go with 1,200 receiving yards over 7 picks.
Yeah, you know you're a good corner when you don't get many opportunities for interceptions. So that's kind of that. Tony, I appreciate you hopping on. Tell the people where they could find you and the rest of your Jaguars/Travis Hunter coverage.
Twice a day, I do podcasts, Locked on Jaguars, and then the Locked on NFL PM show. Locked on Jaguars is Monday through Friday. Locked on NFL PM, the second edition of 2 shows that we do on Locked on NFL, usually by 2:00 every day. It's wherever you get your podcast. So we double up, man, around here, man. And then occasionally you can find me on TV, because that question that was asked about Trevor the other day, if the wide receiver, if Travis Hunter, the wide receiver, was being guarded by Travis Hunter, the corner, and it was 4th and 7 and the ball comes your way, who's going to catch it? And he said Travis Hunter. That was me that asked him that question. So it's kind of been flying.
I thought that smooth voice sounded.
Yeah, man, that's me, man. That was me that asked him that question. So it's kind of going viral a little bit. And that's the other thing. It gives you a chance to see. I tried to trick him into telling me. That was my way of trying to figure out which version of him was best. And
yeah.
He's so smart. He just went around that thing like he smiled. He smiled too right before he answered, because he said, "You ain't get me, old man. Come on."
Yeah, no, he's ready for that one, right? And even then, someone asked him one time, when you dream about stuff, are you dreaming about offense or defense? He said fishing. So he will never, ever, at least so far, give you that answer. So I hope you continue to search for that answer, because I want to know the answer to that. But in the meantime, I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked on Buffs. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Go check our interview with Zach Atkins, a new tight end. And I will see you guys tomorrow.